The Realm. Do you know what the Realm is? It's the 1,000 blades of Aegon's enemies. A story we agreed to tell each other over and over till we forget that it's a lie.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones Season 8 video. Well, here we are once again, my friends. It's Sunday night, and another episode of Game of Thrones has just ended. Like I do on every Sunday night, I want to give my thoughts on what I think could happen in the upcoming episode. In this video, I want to discuss what I think will be the inevitable battle for King's Landing, and also the possibility of another battle on the Blackwater Bay. This next episode is also directed by Miguel Sapochnik, and this man is responsible for directing some of the biggest battles in Game of Thrones history, so you can almost guarantee we will see a fight for the Iron Throne in the very next episode. It's no secret, Daenerys Targaryen has come to Westeros to claim what she believes is rightfully hers, but as we all know, Cersei Lannister is not about to just hand over the Iron Throne. In fact, Cersei is one of the very few characters who have never really left King's Landing. She has been here ever since the first season of the show, which is kind of incredible when you think about it. We have seen so many of these characters travel all over the Seven Kingdoms, everywhere from Beyond the Wall and all the way to Essos, but Cersei has remained in King's Landing until the very end. Well, we just might see this change by the end of the next episode. Like I have said before, I believe Daenerys will be left with no choice but to attack King's Landing. I think it's only a matter of time before we see Cersei Lannister's downfall, or at least I hope so. I have always thought we would eventually see the end of Cersei Lannister, but Game of Thrones may try to shock us once again. As you all know, Daenerys was ready to attack King's Landing last season. Dany was ready to take her dragons right into the city, but after talking to her advisors, as well as Jon Snow, she decided not to do that just yet. Instead, Dany gathered up everything she had to go help Jon defeat the Army of the Dead. They were able to get that done in the last episode, but unfortunately, they suffered some heavy casualties. Daenerys had already lost one of her dragons to the Night King. Now she has essentially lost most of her original force. Although Dany still has her other two dragons, they still need some new alliances, otherwise they might not be able to take over King's Landing unless Dany does have her dragons burn things to the ground, which is what they wanted to avoid. This is exactly what Cersei was hoping would happen. Cersei was hoping the Night King would kill them, but if not, then at least she was hoping Jon and Dany would lose a lot of their men. That would certainly make the battle for King's Landing a hell of a lot more interesting if they were closer to even numbers. As we all know, Cersei did not have very many Lannister soldiers left, not after what Dany did to them during the Field of Fire, so it's hard to say exactly how many Lannister soldiers are still out there as of right now. Thanks to Euron Greyjoy, Cersei does now have access to the Iron Fleet. That allowed Cersei to go and acquire 20,000 new soldiers from the Golden Company. So now that Jon and Dany lost so many men fighting the Night King, there is a very good chance that Cersei has more soldiers than they do right now. That is until when and if Jon and Dany get some new alliances on their side. Now of course, it doesn't always matter how many men you have when your enemy has dragons. We have seen just how many soldiers Dany's dragons can take out within the matter of seconds, but as we all know, Cersei may also have a weapon that can take out hundreds or thousands of soldiers at once. Like I've said before, I am thinking there is still wildfire underneath King's Landing. The Mad King was hiding wildfire all over the city, and Cersei made sure Qyburn was locating all the wildfire several seasons ago. Not only that, but he most likely has learned how to make his own by now. That means Cersei may be able to set some traps for Jon and Dany's men. Cersei could have different sections of the city explode whenever Jon and Dany's men are nearby. The battle for King's Landing very well could turn into a massive fireworks display. Now what's interesting is, not only could we see an attack on King's Landing, but we might also see something very reminiscent of the Battle of Blackwater Bay. Now I'm obviously making this video before I have seen the new episode, so there is always a chance that something could change, but as of right now, Euron Greyjoy's entire fleet is sitting out on the Blackwater Bay. This will most likely be King's Landing's first line of defense against an attack from the water. Since Daenerys is coming from Dragonstone, she will fly her dragons right over the bay, and I think you can all guess what would happen next. We have already seen just how devastating Dany's dragons can be when they're attacking stationary objects. Right before Daenerys Targaryen left Meereen, she caught the entire bay on fire, and I think we might see her do the same thing, only this time it will be in the Blackwater Bay. This may have already been foreshadowed during last season when Cersei had a conversation with the man from the Iron Bank.
My armada owns the Narrow Sea.
Euron Greyjoy's armada owns the Narrow Sea.
Euron Greyjoy is loyal to me.
For now. Daenerys Targaryen has 3 full-grown dragons. How well do wooden ships fare against fire-breathing dragons?
Her dragons might not be as invulnerable as some think.
As you can see, Daenerys may be able to take out Euron Greyjoy's entire fleet within the hour. However, that might be easier said than done. Daenerys should be very careful because her dragons might be able to be taken out of the sky. Some of you might not remember this, but Euron Greyjoy does have some sort of catapults on his ships. We saw these when the Unsullied captured Casterly Rock. If you look very closely, you can see what looks like fireballs flying through the sky. So, even if Daenerys does try to burn all of Euron's ships, he might be able to have his men fire right back at her. Not only that, but Dany also has to be aware of Cersei and Qyburn's ballistas. We have already seen Drogon get taken out of the sky from one of those ballistas. Not to mention, Dany's dragons are still trying to recover from their fight against the Army of the Dead. Both of her dragons were injured in that battle. It's hard to say how much longer they can last in all of the battles. Also, like I said before, if Cersei and Qyburn were smart, they would have the ballistas set up all over the city and around the Red Keep. I would have them aiming in every single direction at the sky, so no matter which way Dany takes her dragons, I would want a ballista within firing distance. Daenerys might kill Cersei and take back King's Landing for House Targaryen, but it will absolutely come at a cost. She could lose both of her dragons in the process. Now, it will be interesting to see how this battle does actually end. Something I always like to reference are the visions Dany and Bran had several seasons ago. I think they would be a lot easier to dismiss if only one of the characters saw this, but since Dany and Bran had the same vision, it always made me think we would see it happen at the very end of the show. When Bran Stark goes into the weirwood net for the very first time, he is shown the Iron Throne covered in snow. Some fans said that has to mean King's Landing gets covered in snow, and maybe that even means the Night King makes it all the way down to King's Landing. However, I don't think we have to see that much snow in King's Landing for it to be true. I think the snow itself is only meant to be symbolic, as in Jon Snow is the true heir to the Iron Throne. Now, when Daenerys Targaryen sees this, she also happens to be standing inside of the Great Hall. When she begins to walk inside, she can see all of the destruction done to the Great Hall. Daenerys is most likely the one that is responsible for what we see in her vision. Nearly all of the damage is up above, which means it was most likely done by Dany's dragons. As you can see, the Iron Throne is covered in snow once again. And like I said, that doesn't mean we will actually have to see snow all over King's Landing. Now, what I want to talk about is what Dany does next. As we all know, Dany is never able to grab the Iron Throne. She walks out before she ever does. What the hell does that actually mean? Based on the way the Great Hall looks, you would think Dany has won that battle. It does look like her dragons went crazy on the city, but if that's the case, why don't we see Dany claim the Iron Throne? Do you think Daenerys might actually die in that battle, or does she not want the Iron Throne after everything it cost her to get it? Well, if you go back to the second episode of this season, we hear Jenny's song at the end of the episode right as Dany finds out she is not the next one in line for the Iron Throne. That song most likely foreshadows how Jon and Dany's stories will end. One of them may give up their claim for love, but there is also a second layer to that song. That song was originally about two characters whose stories ended in a tragedy. Basically, there was a Targaryen named Duncan Targaryen. He was set to get married to another woman, but he was in love with Jenny from Oldstones. He wanted to get married to Jenny, but if he did that, then he would lose his claim to the Iron Throne. Well, he does eventually give up his claim to marry Jenny, but both of them allegedly die during the tragedy at Summerhall. So, when we hear this song during the second episode, we automatically assume that it relates to Jon and Dany's current situation, because the song does end when Dany goes down into the crypts of Winterfell. That was when Jon tells her about who he really is. There are so many different ways you can look at this. Maybe the song means Jon will give up his claim to the Iron Throne. Or maybe it means Dany will give up her claim to the Iron Throne. Since we never see Dany grab the Iron Throne in her House of the Undying Vision, then you could assume that maybe she's the one that gives up the claim. However, like I said, that song is also about how Duncan and Jenny's story ends in a tragedy. It is said that both of them died during the fire at Summerhall. Could that mean Jon, Dany, or both of them die in a fire as well? Now, I know that some of you think Daenerys cannot die by fire, but that's not the case. The only reason why we have seen her survive fire before is because blood magic was involved. So could this be the final shocking event of the series? It looks like the Great Hall where the Iron Throne is located will be on fire next season. Hopefully, one of them doesn't die in that very room. Let me know what you think happens for the Battle at King's Landing. Do you believe we could see the fight for the Iron Throne end in a tragedy? Leave your thoughts down below. I want to thank you all for watching another video, and I also want to thank everyone for supporting the channel. I hope you all have a great day. I will see you again very soon. Bye.